sure that book's going to hit the #1 spot on Amazon very, very soon if it hasn't already?
Oh, yes, it has already, actually.
It has already. Good.
Yes.
Dedicated to generating free web traffic like champs. This is the Internet Marketing Savvy Podcast. Please welcome your host, Dan Ashendorf.
Hi everyone, welcome to this call. I'm Dan Ashendorf, really excited to have you here. Today I've got someone really special. Her name is Kristen Noelle and she's all the way from LA coming to join us. I'm really excited about this podcast, and so without further ado, hello Kristen.
Good, thank you so much Dan for having me. I feel so honored to be here and I'm excited to chat with you today.
That's great, Kristen. So could you tell me a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a transformational mindset and business coach, and primarily I work with small business owners and entrepreneurs who really feel like they have money blocks, and that prevents them from really charging more or even putting themselves out there. And so I really help my clients eliminate those money blocks so that they can actually really quantum leap into their business and really attract their ideal clients.
Nice. By the way, I'm going to mute and unmute myself because my next door tenant is doing some building work. So if I can jump in and out of that, sorry about this. Okay,
no worries.
So that's something that's really close to my heart. So money. We love talking about money on this podcast. Okay, so you, I suppose, just from listening to you, you kind of bring out the best in people. So someone's got an idea, he's got this kind of business moving forward, but then he's hitting a roadblock, right?
Yes.
And we all have roadblocks. I mean, it's not just in business, not just money, there's relationship, there's, people don't necessarily like the way they look and so on, but your expertise is releasing those sort of cash flow, those business problems, and just kind of moving them aside for people to move forward. So tell me one thing that people can do when they face that hurdle. What do they do?
Yeah, so the first thing I really suggest all of my clients to do is to turn inwards, right? So I think the natural response when people come across a money block or any block in general is that they start to panic and then they start to reach for like external help, right? They start Googling or they start calling someone and they really look outward. And my approach is to always turn inwards because whatever is happening on the outside is a reflection of what's happening on the inside. And most likely the money blocks that you're having stems from something that has happened in the past, right? I work with a lot of clients that feel bad for number one, not only like marketing their products sometimes, but also like charging more or increasing their prices. And even though they feel like they want to, they feel guilty, right? They feel guilty for doing so. They feel like, okay, like who am I to like charge more? Who am I to demand these prices? And really it just stems from their beliefs about money and their beliefs about themselves regarding money. So that's why it's not about looking for an external strategy, but it's always first going inwards and asking these questions and really diving deep into, like what are my my true beliefs about money, right? And kind of starting from there before moving forward.
Okay, so let's talk about this introspection, because I love that, because I really do believe that the subconscious is extremely powerful. So
Yes.
I use meditation predominantly mindfulness. So I've got this app and I just so what would you recommend for people and how would you go about finding these answers that actually live within us?
Yeah. So I love meditation as well. I do the same thing. I do a lot of hypnosis, meditation. But first of all, it's actually asking yourself powerful questions, right? I think that when people hire coaches, there's several different types of coaches, right? There's the coach that will basically give you the step-by-step strategy. There's the coach that will really challenge you and ask you those powerful questions. And I personally believe that powerful questions are what moves the needle, right? Transformation happens when you're able to receive a breakthrough. So when you can, when I remind my clients when I'm not there with them, right? So because I'm not there with them 24/7. So if you're there, like if you are at home, if you're feeling like, okay, something's happening where you feel like you're stuck, the first thing to ask yourself is, what is the thought that I'm having right now, right? What is the belief that's coming up? So that's something that I do myself because I'm obviously human. So I will go through periods where I start to feel like anxious, right? Or I feel like something's not right. So I always stop myself and I ask myself, well, what's the thought that's happening right now, right? What's the belief, right? And then from there, I question that belief. Is it ultimately true? Because a lot of the thoughts that we have, a lot of the beliefs that we have about money are not true, right? It's been, taught by us, by society. Even right now with the world going on, a lot of it is just, taught by what other people are telling us or what we see on the news or what we see on social media. So it's really hard for us to kind of work through the noise that's happening. And whenever that's, you feel yourself being consumed by so much noise, it's always good to just unplug and actually go within, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting what you say. So obviously there is the introspection part, and that is going to give us some answers. But the other thing was to be able to charge what we deserve. And I always find that to be a bit of a challenge, because no one really knows, I guess, until they try what they're going to get away with, right? That's
no, I actually disagree with that, right? I don't teach my clients that format. I think that price is a touchy subject, right? Because you can ultimately, as a business owner, charge anything you want, right? It really just depends on what you believe your products or your services are worth. And so the exercise that I do with my clients is that I actually ask them to write down all the results that your client will potentially get from working with you or from using your product or your service, right? And then from there, you can really ultimately come up with a good price. But some of the times I feel like a lot of people are actually undercharging. They're undercharging because they feel like people won't pay them more, right? And it's an energy that they put off that is what the issue, right? Because the thing is that I've paid a lot of money for something, and I've also paid like very little for the same type of work, right? And it really just depends on the person behind the product or behind the service.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's worked for me is, for example, if I was to charge $700, right, for coaching or whatever, and people paid it, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go for $1,000 now, and they would stop. What I would do is I would just crank up the value. I would just add more value in there rather than drop the price.
Yes.
So, sometimes that helps as well, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, for sure. Because, I think we're both fans of Russell Brunson, right?
Yeah.
And so he teaches that as well, which I absolutely love, because, when you lower your prices that way, it just makes it seem as if it's not as valuable, right? But when you can put more things, when you can add more value to someone, then it's essentially, in some sense, the same way, but it's looked at differently. So I totally agree with you. I liked your approach.
Okay, and you have a book out as well recently, like a new book.
I do, yes.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So my new book is called Stop Chasing, Start Attracting. I actually have it with me. This is the author copy, so there's that line through it.
Okay.
But essentially, my book is about the cash flow trinity, which is the framework that I use when I teach my clients on how to really eliminate their money block so that they can start really showing up, not only just to like charge higher, right, but to market themselves very confidently. Because again, I really think that one of the biggest problems that people have, aside from not having a good strategy, is also being confident in their services, being confident in showing up, being confident in running that webinar, doing whatever it is that they need to do to sell their stuff, right? And so with this book, it's really divided into 3 pillars. And within the 3 pillars, it's the 3 concepts that I teach. So the first one is your money mission. So I really believe that we're all put here for a different reason. And because I use Chinese metaphysics and I use like your business design to really develop a strategy that works for you, because whatever may work for you may not work for me, and vice versa. We all have different energy. We have a different design. And so if we're all just following a cookie cutter strategy, what's up happening is that our essence, our energy is conveyed differently. And I'm so passionate about this because I through experience, I have learned that if I just follow a mentor's strategy, it may work, right? It may work, but it may feel different for me. And that's also why, in my framework, I actually teach you how to read your own charts, how to learn about yourself so that you can come up with a strategy that's right for you. So that's the first pillar, right? The second pillar is all about your abundant mindset. So I'm a huge proponent on that. Success is 80% mindset and then 20% mechanics, which is the strategy, right? Because I can give you strategy, right? I can look for that strategy, but if my mindset is not correct, if I believe that I'm not worth it or like I can't do it, then even if I follow that strategy, like there's something off about it. And I've seen it so many times. And then finally, the third pillar is your financial environment. So because I have a background in feng shui and Chinese metaphysics, I talk about how your environment actually is a huge proponent to your success. So how can we design our environment so that money flows to us and that energy is able to move very freely within your space so that you can have space to allow money to come in.
I really love that. Sorry, can you still hear me? Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I love that because, some of the largest banks in the world, there's a really large British bank, it's called HSBC.
Yes.
And they've redesigned the entire banking, the entire buildings and everything, cost them billions to be feng shui compliant, and
Yes.
they've done really well out of it. So it really is amazing. And I think one of the challenges we face is that people just believe in the five senses, and anything that's beyond that, they're just very skeptical about. And I think once you kind of going back to this introspection and the subconscious and so on, once you start to open yourself up to these powers like feng shui and all these other ones which you can't see, you can't smell, you can't touch, then good things start to happen.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I 100% agree with you, right? Like, this is how I look at it. And that is, for instance, like powerful things like love, like you can't see love, right? You can't like, you can feel it because it's like this feeling you can't explain, but love to everyone is different, right? And so that's why, like, for people that say, well, I can't see feng shui, or like, how does that work? Why not talk to like a farmer like hundreds of years ago that there's going to be something called an iPhone, right? Or there's something called blue light blockers, right? I don't know if you guys have that in UK, but I love them. So it's like, if you were to ask that person, they'll be like, there's no way, right? That's magic, or it's like so woo-woo. But again, it's like our world is changing. I don't know if you noticed this, but the world is changing right now. And I really believe that it's going to be a more yin. So the concept of yin and yang. So for centuries and for many years, our world has been more yang, right? More masculine. I really believe that our world is becoming more yin, more soft, more feminine, more connected. And so we're just preparing for that right now. And so that's why I really think that these concepts are going to be so revolutionized to a lot of people because they're able to use these new tools in their businesses.
Yeah, it really does sound exciting. So if we were to, if our listeners were to take one thing away from this call this afternoon, what would you give them sort of as a takeaway that's going to really change their lives?
Yeah, well, first of all, you can buy my book, right? Because everything is in there. I wish I could tell you more right now in this call, but definitely get the book because I talk a lot about the basics of what I teach in the book, so that you guys can really, take it. You will have a basic understanding of the three pillars and what to do with it. But if I were to say one thing right now, it's to look in your environment right now, right? Wherever you are, wherever you're living, and to really ask yourself, like, do you have things in your home or even within yourself that you're still hanging on to, right? A good analogy is like, I had a plant, and last week there was one leaf that was turning really yellow. And most people, I kind of give this analogy because most people, when they have a bad habit or there's something that's going on in their lives, they're afraid to let go of that one bad thing, right? Because they're trying to keep everything together. But really you just need to cut it off, right? So when you cut off that leaf that's yellow, you're allowing more space to grow. You're allowing the plant to really flourish. And that's the same thing with your business, right? A lot of people ask me, a lot of my clients ask me, well, like, what if like my friends are negative, for example, right? Like, what do I do? Well, it's like you have that choice to really choose who you hang out with, right? So if that person is really negative and it's really sucking the soul out of you, it's not an excuse for you to still be with them and hang out with them. Like, you have that choice. And so my biggest thing for listeners or your audience is to really understand that, to be honest with yourself with what's holding you back, right? Because once you're honest with yourself, you can cut that, you can let it go so that you can actually quantum leap.
Yeah, so honesty and then decluttering possibly.
Yes.
something that holds you back. So lean and mean moving forwards without all the baggage. Sounds great. Okay, and if my listeners want to find out more about you and get in touch and all those sort of good things, buy the book, how do they get hold of you?
Yeah, so you can check out my website. It's kristennoelle.co. You can also find me on Instagram. You can find me on YouTube. It's funny because I'm starting to actually love YouTube because I used to actually be really, how would I say it? Like, kind of not against it, but like YouTube was so scary for me. But I realized that YouTube is such an amazing platform because YouTube is when people are actually searching for things, and you can really position yourself in that light, right? So you can check me out on Instagram, on YouTube, my website, and then obviously buy my book on Amazon.
Nice one. Well, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, Kristen. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll keep an eye out for you. And I'm sure that book's going to hit the #1 spot on Amazon very, very soon, if it hasn't already.
Oh yes, it has already, actually.
It has already. Good.
Yes. So yes, I'm hoping that the momentum will still rise. So I'm excited. Definitely check it out. It's an amazing book.
And we are
not just because it's mine, but but really.
Absolutely. And we are going to have show notes under this video as well. So if anyone wants to search for the book and go ahead and purchase, highly recommended.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Dan.
My absolute pleasure. Take care now. Bye-bye.